don't care if your graphics aren't flashy, or if your audio doesn't sound perfect, or if you're not the world's greatest camera person. We just want to see what you want us to see, and to know what you would like us to know. Your local public access television station has tools and resources to make this possible, so that we can see what you see. It's the freedom to communicate, and it's only on cable.
Welcome to WinCam's coverage of Winchester's special town election here, dealing with two override questions. My name is Alan Iden, and I'm delighted to be here tonight with Alan McDonald and Tom Howley, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you very
Gentlemen,
much.
thank you for being here tonight.
Great to be here.
We are going to talk a little bit about what the questions were today. We are getting some pretty good figures in that there was a pretty good voter turnout today, especially surprising for just two questions.
Alan, the average voter turnout in a town-wide election for 2.5 is 45%. Over 11 times we've come to the polls for a town election. We've done it twice for statewide election in November as well, but on just town elections, special or March regular election, average 45% turnout when there's an override on the ballot.
And what have you seen the figures today? I don't know what we have for turnout. What do we have for registered voters?
Similar, 13,000 plus, a little over
Okay.
13,000 registered, and the turnout will be well into the 40s again.
Yeah, very, very impressive. Of course, we had good weather on our side, but it's a tribute to, I think, the selectmen and Tom, your job of getting the public informed on this. We're going to have the results shortly, but it's been amazing that, to me, that there's been so much interest and so much education that's been brought out this. And you've had 8, has it been 8 public sessions?
There are actually 7 public information sessions on Hamilton Farm. And of course, on the budget, we really began our work with the Springtown meeting in last April. So the board very early on decided that what we really needed to do was to try to engage each other, provide a kind of forum where we could really talk about issues in a respectful, good critical thinking kind of way, but then collaborate with other people, certainly with the town manager and senior town staff, with other boards, and with the public. And of course, when we began that journey on really what was fiscal issues, we didn't really know about Hamilton Farm then. And it turned out that same approach to Hamilton Farm, I think, was very helpful. And the input we got from the public was enormously important.
Yeah, just for our viewers to recap what has happened, Winchester had an article on Hamilton Farm on last fall's town meeting, which was postponed because there was nothing to talk about at that point.
That's right.
And then what, was it 3 days? 3 days
About
after town
3
meeting?
days afterwards, we received notice that, in fact, the purchase and sale agreement had been signed.
And
that triggered the town's right of first refusal. And it also triggered a great deal of work that needed to be done to try to figure out what the issues were.
And just again to remind people, that's why we've had a special election here, and why it couldn't wait until 2 weeks from now at the general election, because you have this deadline coming up.
That's right. The deadline is actually March 15th.
Right.
So they're really, 2 days from now.
Right.
And that's why we had the need to have this election today.
Right down to the wire. And again, just reminding everybody that there were 2 questions for those people that didn't go out to the polls today. There were 2 questions on the ballot. One dealing with a $13.6 million override to a debt exclusion override to allow the selectmen to exercise their purchase option on the Hamilton Farm property on the far west end of town, and a $1.3 million general override for the operating budget. So we had 2 questions today. Any predictions on how they're going to come out? Or
Well, the interesting thing here, and of course it should pass well because there was no organized opposition in this particular election for this override. And the other thing that's important is that it relates to land in Precinct 5 and bordering Precinct 6. And historically, on the 18 override questions we've had since 1988, we've passed 3 of them and 15 have failed. But the formula for winning is to do very well in the middle precincts, 3, 4, 7, and you know you have difficulty in the outer precincts of 1, 2, 8, but 5 and 6 have been the swing over the years. Precinct 5 has only voted yes on a 2.5 override 3 times in those 18 questions, and Precinct 6 only once. And when those 3 that won did win, the 5 and 6 together just were in a positive vein in 2 out of the 3 of them. So they have been the swing. And the fact that this question hinges on property in 5 and 6 is very good for the override, I would say.
Well, as you mentioned, we haven't had a good history of passing overrides. These are 2 very different ones. I mean, you're dealing with tangible property in the first one, and the second one, just, you know, the sentiment is the town's coming back looking for more money.
That's right.
I
think the thing that united both of them is, although there were certainly different issues that were present with each question, what united them in a way was the impact that each question would have on the town's finances and ability to provide services. Both questions would have an enormous impact on our schools in particular, but generally on the town's finances. And so I think in the end, you know, the conversations that were going on with regards to the budget in a way helped us inform the conversations that went on with Hamilton Farm, and vice versa, really. It kind of, in a way, it provided a context for people to think about this, I think.
We're going to see in a few minutes when we get the results. You know, the polls did close at 8 o'clock, so we should be having our results post very shortly. Going back to some of the historic override questions, Alan, what perspective can you bring to it?
Well, we've had a tremendously hard-fought campaign for an override in March of '02, which was the first general override that we had. We had 2 debt exclusion overrides in 98 and 99, and that was to do the McCall Middle School and the Lincoln School, particularly in the Ambrose, of course, came along also later on. And then we had in March of '02 a significant $4.5 million general override to help us in a very difficult time, and it's 5 years later. And we notice neighboring communities, town of Arlington, for instance, is in the 3rd year, I think, Tom, of a 5-year plan they have there. And 5 years is a pretty good stretch on something that we did in '02, for instance, into '07. I would just want to comment for the viewers who may not have had experience with our guest commentator, I hope they all have, who's been the chairman of the planning board in his past and the chairman currently of the Board of Selectmen. So his comments have been very helpful to us in understanding this particular issue, because he is as close to it as you can get. And there's been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into helping the citizens understand the current situation. And I think the atmosphere for the vote is the most positive that we've had in all the votes since '88. We didn't, when 2.5 passed, that was 1980. We didn't go to the town until 1988 on any of these questions. And since then, there have been, this is the 14th trip to the polls in the last 15 years for different questions, and some of them are very small questions. Even how do we want to do on $12,000 for an override to pay for the rent for the Council on Aging, all the way up to $17 million to worry about school rebuilding, which the state is going to help us significantly with when we pay those bonds back. But the range of questions has been large, and the vote turnout has been different in terms of the enthusiasm for the override or not. There have been times when even those precincts which are normally expected to vote yes for different reasons have not voted yes. They haven't. None of the precincts have voted yes on all of the 18 questions. So it has been up and down as to how important some of these are. But I feel that the town in this particular situation really did come together. And I think you'll see that across all precincts, frankly, this time.
You know, one of the interesting things, we talk about the need to have at least the Hamilton Farm question be decided today. But the other interesting aspect of this election was the decision to have the operating override question on the same day. Yeah. And there was a great deal of debate about that. People were sort of handicapping that. Does that make sense? Should we keep it on the regular March 27th ballot, or should we join them together? Should they be one question even? And in the end, the board decided that it was important to join the two together so that people could have a conversation about both issues at the same time. We weren't really sure if that was going to work out or not, but hopefully I felt that as we got closer to the election, that's in fact what happened, that the folks who are very interested in Hamilton Farm became more knowledgeable about the town's operating issues, and people who otherwise might be passionate about schools came to understand the impact that the other question would have. And I think that was a very important decision that the board made.
And we've seen an incredible campaign mounted for Hamilton Farm, and I think as I was noticing as the campaign went on that the focus was not just on the farm, but then they also broadened it to talk about the general operating override. But incredibly well-organized group on the Hamilton Farm from all sections of town, not just the abutters.
I think that's the indication. When the town meeting votes 151 to 1, I think it was, to put this on the ballot, there's support all across the community, and that's what we expect as we look at the figures.
But I think your point is really well taken. What I find is that we do so much better as a town when we engage people, and when we really, Winchester, its town government as well as so many other issues are really carried by citizen volunteers. And in this case, we had on both questions, there were just wonderfully dedicated, hardworking people involved with both questions, and so everybody had a role to play, I think, in how people came to understand these issues.
Well, and again, and just to give credit back to you, in these informational sessions, and I managed to get to about 5 of them.
Oh my gosh! I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
I could have tried more, but I think they were just. It was. Each one brought different parties to the table. The planning board one time, the finance committee, and the school committee. Right. And again, I was just impressed that it was a very calm and thoughtful process that people went through, and you could tell from the questions from the audience on each time that everybody was they had questions, and they got the answers from them, and whether it was the answer they wanted or not, they got a straightforward answer from whoever was on.
And it wasn't simply the Board of Selectmen. The role that the Planning Board played, the Conservation Commission, the Historic Commission, the Housing Partnership, all of these boards played a very significant role in terms of exercising their own perspective and authority and then doing it collaboratively with us. Right. And that was a very interesting thing. I'm hopeful that no matter what the outcome is, that'll be something that will resonate with people and will kind of guide us in terms of how we approach issues.
Right. I don't know if we, I was told we have do we have the video that the Hamilton Farm Group put forward? We're going to check on that. But that was another thing that it was very impressive that they put together a very, I guess, emotional video. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, as being a Winchester resident for 50 years, this was a hidden treasure. I didn't know about it. Yeah. I knew driving by on Ridge Street, you could see the farmhouses. I had no idea until I started looking into it, the depth of it. Oh, here we go. Let's take a look at this. We have no audio. Okay. All right. Again, this what I was saying was I was looking at some of these aerial views of it that I had no idea that the farm went back that far, and that there were so many buildings there.
Yeah, there are a couple farm buildings that date from around 1827. At least one of them does, and then the farmhouse itself. And the land is is really quite spectacular. If you actually have the opportunity to walk on it. There are different parts of it where you look, particularly I found when looking back towards the historic buildings that you could be certainly in the 19th century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen some of those. I'm assuming you've had a chance to go. I know
we had one opportunity to walk the property. We were invited to do that. There were several members of the Board of Selectmen and members of the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board were there. It was fairly tightly controlled, And it was really
Invited by the family? the
Yes,
Hamiltons?
and
Yeah.
they're very, they want to maintain their privacy, which is understandable, and we were respectful of that.
I think what was fun for us to see during the course of this discussion was some of the pictures in the printed press, even one of Mr. Locke driving his tractor as late as 1957 across this property. So it's really not that long ago. It is a long-time farmed area for sure, but it's as recently as half a century that it really was getting a lot of use. So.
Well, the fact that it's had 3 families own it
Yeah.
since the 1600s
Yeah, it's
is in and of itself remarkable.
the
Okay.
rights to the Locks to the Hamiltons, yeah.
Yeah, and even some history as far as Canada is concerned. So yeah, a remarkable piece of property. I don't know. Without having an earpiece in tonight,
Yes, I see,
I'm
yeah.
not getting fed all information about what's going in there. This is a little unusual. What do we have up next? We were I think we had something about town meeting.
We have next. Yeah, ready on that? Keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, this, of course, town meeting, as we
Yeah.
just talked about, debated an entire evening to come out 151 to 1. That's sort
Yeah.
of normal, standard operating procedure, but there was a lot of fervor and emotionally strong support for this proposal to give the town the right to be in charge of the future of the property. And of course, at one point, the town meeting got off a little bit as to what will be next. That was getting ahead of the situation. Of course, that is going to be the next step if this indeed passes today. But
All right. I guess we're going to go over to town hall for the moment. Do we have somebody at town hall?
Town meeting.
Town meeting.
This is
Okay.
gonna be,
Do we have our town meeting coverage? So let's take a look at that.
Okay, you ready? All those in favor of Article 1, which is for the town to purchase the Hamilton Farm, approximately 19.2 acres, subject to an override for $13,600,000, please rise and the tellers will count. 2/3 vote required. $31, sir. $32. 38. I beg your pardon? 50. All those opposed, please rise. Zero. 1. 0. How do you know? I haven't even reported. 151 having voted in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, a total of 152 votes, 102 required for passage. The motion passes. Very good. Article 2. It's moved and seconded that the Board of Selectmen are authorized to sell all or a portion of the Hamilton Farm property for not less than $7 million. The purchaser to be selected in accordance with the provisions of the Uniform Procurement Act. Said portion includes all options identified in the request for proposals for the proposed disposition of town-owned property at Hamilton Farm issued December 2006. Said sale shall be subject to approval of a subsequent regular or special town meeting vote. All those in favor, please rise and the tellers will count. $31. 35. 31. 50. All those opposed, please rise. 0. 2. 1. 0. 147 having voted in the affirmative, 3 having voted negative, obviously more than the 2/3 vote, and the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Well, we saw what happened just a few weeks ago at town meeting. Let's take a look at some of the results that have come in from today's election. I think we're going to start with precinct 1. This is on our first question. There we go. The $13.5 million override. We're looking at a 596 to 223 vote in precinct 1 in favor of the purchase. Moving on to precinct 2. Oh, question 2. All right, question 2 for the general override, $1.3 million, 521 in favor, 298 against. Okay, let's take a look at precinct 2. And the question 1 in precinct 2, 281 to 177. And on question 2, the general override, 247 to 208 in precinct 2. Precinct 3 for the question number 1. We see, there we go, 697.
Question 2.
Oh, question 2. All right. Well, I don't know what happened to question 1, but question 2, 697 to 268. And question 1, 799 to 162. All right, let's take a look at precinct 4. Question 1, 781 yes to 200 no's. And on question 2 in precinct 4, we see a vote of 680 to 299. First 4 precincts in.
Wow.
Well, I'd say we got some trends here.
That's historic. Precinct 1 and Precinct 2 have yet to, until today, vote yes on an override question, any of them, and that was significant. And it's significant in the turnout. Precinct 1 had over 50% turnout. Precinct 2 is in the 30s, I guess, probably, but the other 2 also had over 50%. That's a very big turnout. You would expect 3 and 4. You needed to have 3 and 4 to be favorable in order to have a good chance at this, it would seem to me, and of course they were overwhelmingly favorable. But for 1 and 2 to vote yes, it shows townwide support significantly, frankly, and that's historic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're looking at, 3 to 1 in precincts 3 and 4, about a 3 to 1 ratio. That's remarkable.
It is remarkable.
And even a just basic math skill says it's 2 to 1. On question 2, on the general override, which is also remarkable.
That's a very important piece. I think Tom Howley's going to tell us that too in a second, because they do go together, and that was the way the Board of Selectmen did present it, and the way town meeting, I think, felt about it. And that is a significant support, and again, historic, for a general override question, not a debt override situation.
Yeah, I'd like to think that you know, when we started out, the original town manager projection for the deficit was around $2.5 million. And we began our work essentially last summer, and began just really doing a lot of brainstorming, coming up with ideas, sort of engaging with department heads, worked our way all the way through the fall on these issues. Eventually, as the override question indicates, we got the deficit from 2.5 down to 1.3. And I think what's maybe even more important is that we began by focusing on a limited number of very critical issues that we did not want to run away from, you know, in terms of energy consumption, health insurance issues, the recycling issue for the town to try to reduce the cost of solid waste, trying to narrow the sort of gap any way we could between revenue and expenditures. And I'd like to think that, you know, it's particularly, I certainly appreciate the support we've seen in 3 and 4 so far, but 1 and 2 I think is really, and that's a wonderful thing on that issue.
And actually, you know, that's a very good point about the deficit was $2.5 million.
Right.
Now, those of us, you know, following town meeting and town government knew about that, but I'm not sure that really came out during this campaign.
No,
I'm not sure people appreciate that there was a lot of trimming to get it down to 1.3 from that 2.5 earlier in the budget process.
Yeah, there was.
Why don't we go and take a look and see what our results are in precincts 5 through 8. Okay, precinct 5. All right, Following a trend, there we go, 856 to 128. That's, I think you would expect that right now.
That's the precinct where the farm is located.
Yep. And 674 to 306 for the general override in Precinct 5. Moving on to Precinct 6, you see 749 to 132.
Extraordinary.
Yep. And on question 2, the general override, 749 to 132.
That's question 1 from precinct 6. That's it.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
there we
there we
go.
go.
Yeah, that's right, okay. Question 2 for Precinct 6, 561 to 320. Okay. Precinct 7, your question 1 in Precinct 7, just about the same as 6, 768 to 154. And general override question in Precinct 7 passes 629 to 294. And our final precinct, Precinct 8, question 1, 329 to 212. And general override, 239 to 302.
That's the only negative.
The
vote.
only precinct, right. All right.
Question 1, 320, that's a total.
Okay.
Total will probably come up.
Are we back on Precinct 1? Let's,
No, that's question 1, precinct 8
Question-
again. I think the totals, we got
Okay,
in my
yep.
mind,
I think we're gonna
sort of
total-
know the totals are large. I
you've
would
been adding
say-
those up in your head as you go along?
Well, almost. I know that the only 2 precincts that didn't hit 50% turnout were 2 and 8. So we're going to be near 50%, obviously, in the turnout. The numbers, the largest vote we ever had in favor, you can see it now.
Okay, yeah,
Totals.
there's our
Read
totals.
those, yeah.
On the question 1, the Hamilton Farm, $13.6 million, 5,159 to 1,388. Looks like about a 3 to 1.
Well, it's
And let's take a
extraordinary.
look at the general override. That also passes 4248 to 2,295, about 2 to 1.
The number of votes back in March of '02 for the yes were 4,400, so that almost got the same as the March of '02 vote. The most we ever had for a yes was in a losing, when we voted in the presidential elections in '88 and '96, we had the overrides for the debt exclusion. And so you had 89% of the town turning out.
Yep.
And 89% during the Dukakis Bush race in '88, and 87% in the Bill Clinton second term when we had those debt overrides on, and we had 5,300 yes votes in those days, but of course that was still only 45% of the voting, and that was, so the no's won by a good margin in those 2 elections. But you could see that town-wide there were some 5,300 people who would, if they came out to vote, be interested in voting sometimes on a yes. And here we had 5,100 plus vote for yes. That's an extraordinary number for a town-wide election.
Right.
Where you don't have
No other
90%
questions.
turnout, you have 50% turnout, and you still get almost the same number of yeses you had back in the '88, '96. That's a phenomenal story, I think. That's historic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a great thing. And you know, on the operating override side, one of the reasons that this was so important, and it's again a way that the 2 questions were joined, is that it's going to allow us, with the passage of this, it's going to allow us to maintain, I think, a minimally acceptable level of sort of municipal services. But I think the really critical story was on the school side. You know, they have received over 400 additional kids into our school system since the last override was passed. And this next year, they're projected to add another 100-some kids, 107 kids. And so, you know, I think, I mean, this is such a great outcome. If, in fact, the operating override had failed, we would be receiving over 100 additional children while we were laying off teachers. And I'd like to think, in the end, this was compelling to people, and that if they believe, which is certainly true, that we are going to stay with these fiscal issues. We're not pausing for a moment. I'd like to think that people had a sense of that, and that now, if any time, was the time to vote for this question.
Well, it's that override question, the general override, the 1.3 million, 4,200 plus votes, again, almost the same number of votes in '02, 4,400. In that particular election
remember all
was a
this
long
stuff,
campaign.
This is really-
See, archives. Well, if I could mention my good friend Mike Sirocco, who I wish was still here. Mike always said to us back in the end of the '70s, early '80s, "Oh, I've got that in my archives." And he'd come back and pick out I saved some of this stuff
very
over time. But also I enjoy it a lot, and of course for all of us it means a tremendous amount to have people like you, Tom, helping us run the community, and I know both Alan and I appreciate that very much, and all your colleagues. And so we watch closely, and we like to help out
appreciate
as we
that.
go.
You know, one other thing I should mention is that, you know, we've talked about the engagement of our boards and the help that the Board of Selectmen have had with all these issues from our other boards, and also with really active citizens on both issues. But the other thing to be noted, you said you were at 5 of our meetings, is the coverage that we have gotten from WinCam. And I think, you know, the selectmen on the budget issues and Hamilton Farm, it seemed like we were having at least one meeting a week, you know, for months.
Yeah.
And then we would have these public sessions. WinCam was at all of those things. So I think that anybody who doesn't have a sort of an appreciation for what role this station plays in helping us understand issues, I think, you know, they need to tune in.
Thank you.
It's really something.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to say so. I mean, we like to feel that's our job here, to try and keep everybody informed and present these balanced viewpoints. But again, the amount of work that you and the board have done, and all the boards,
Yeah, all the boards. Yeah.
particularly with your leadership, is pulling it together. Again, I just noticed every single meeting was informative, it was calm, it was balanced. Everybody seemed to be...
We were faking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can reveal it.
tell you, yeah, right.
Well, I can say that I've had the pleasure of being here for each and every one of those overrides with Mr. Iden, and I think back to it, because the first one was '88, and we've been doing it since before that a little bit.
We have.
And so we've reported on all of the aspects, when it's been positive and not so positive. But I just think this particular day is historic for the town, and I think it's a very strong vote of support for the town leadership to go forward and make it all happen in the right way.
Well,
Don't you
Maybe
think?
we should touch on the next question coming up, though. You want to comment on the Community Preservation Act question that's going to be on the general election in 2 weeks?
Yeah, it'll be on the ballot, and of course this is in a sense yet another override question, so the voters will be considering, I think it's 1.5%, I believe, whether to add sort of 1.5% to their tax bill in order to be used for purposes of historic preservation and conservation of land and affordable housing.
The difference, though, with this is that you're looking at some state reimbursement.
That's right.
in this.
I neglected to mention that. What happens is that there's a state match, which at least to this point has, for those communities that have elected to pass the Community Preservation Act, they've been 100% matched. Now, whether that'll continue or not is another question.
But it is an important issue to bring out that you know, there is money to be the town can get in from the state.
That's
so
right.
Currently, it's a 1-to-1 match.
That's right.
So,
The state allows you to do 0 to 3%, and then they match, but the match here would be, if we get the 1.5 from the state, that'll be our 3%.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
well, we'll be back again in 2 weeks with our coverage. Unfortunately, Mr. McDonald will not be here with me this year, so that'll be historic too.
Well, I'm sorry to say, I'm
He actually-
traveling, I wish I
he
would
actually-
that particularly.
He actually has to make a living, and you know,
What's with that?
I know it.
you know,
It shouldn't
you
happen.
got to work in your priorities, don't you?
I will be.
But we will be bringing the coverage. Why don't we take one more look at the totals before we sign off tonight? And again, totals for the Hamilton Farm purchase, the override for Hamilton Farm, for $13.6 million. 5,159 to 1,388 no's. And on question 2, the $1.3 million general override, 4,248. It passes with a no vote of 2,295. Remarkable. And that's a wrap for tonight. Tom, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
We really appreciate you coming in.
I would have been. I would have had a different reaction if the outcome had been different. But
I'm-
this is a great place to be tonight.
I'm sure. So hopefully there'll
Yeah.
be some subdued celebration tonight.
Yes, yeah.
And Mr. McDonald, as always, pleasure to have you
Great
here.
be with you. Always enjoy it.
And we want to thank, of course, the crew that came in here tonight for this brief election coverage. And hopefully, the same able crew will be back here in a couple of weeks. So we'll be bringing you the general election coverage on, I believe it's March 27th, if my calendar's correct. So, and it is. So for all of us here at WinCam, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Alan Iden. Have a great night.